right? So in the last 40 years, we've killed more animal species with all this chemical crap than every single human being that ever existed on the planet, just in 40 years. So these are very realistic depictions. So when you go into a brownout, the surface of the earth basically starts dying. If you study what's going on in the mountains right now, almost all over the world, the tree line, the caps of the mountains that used to be covered in snow and used to have trees on them, they're receding. The hairline's receding. And the native Indians in many cultures say, we were warned that when the trees started to come down, it meant the end of our time was coming. Right? If you think I'm just standing here bullshitting you, then you better do your homework, because about 20 Native American cultures and other native cultures warned of all of this stuff if white man kept doing his little tricks. So what do you get when you go into a brownout? No matter what you do, I've had patients that were drinking 25 cups of coffee a day, and not one doctor ever even asked them about it. 25 cups of coffee a day, and guess what their primary complaint was? I'm tired all the time. That's because they're in the brownout stage. Once you go out of the inflammatory stage, you burn your adrenal glands, you can't produce energy anymore. Cortisol is a primary hormone. If you burn your adrenal glands out, it'll kill you, right? Probably 90% of the population has exhausted adrenals right now. You burn them out, you can die, right? So you don't want to mess with it. That's why the body immediately stops producing your sex hormones. It doesn't even want you to reproduce. What's one of the biggest businesses in medicine? In vitro fertilization. Why? For all the reasons I've told you. So what you get? Very tired, very sick people. What do you get? Here's one of my patients, a famous model. I can't tell you her name, but she's a famous model. She went to all sorts of doctors and therapists, terrible pain, anxiety attacks, visions, nightmares, you name it. Well, I talked to her for 15 minutes and I knew exactly what was going on. I said, you got a severe parasite infection. So I put her on parasite protocols. This woman shit 150 meters of worms. She shit a meter of worms a day for 150 days. She had a severe Ascaris infection, and every single doctor overlooked it. They said, oh, your symptoms are all in your head. These are all classic symptoms. This is why I say a lot of these tests that people do to see, what your level of this and your level of that stuff can all easily be regulated by parasites. You've got to ask yourself, are these changes in nutrient levels and hormone levels symptoms of a problem, or are they the problem? Right? That is a question that you can't answer unless you look at the body and all of its biological systems as a whole living system. You cannot isolate these systems. It might interest you to know that Hoffmann-La Roche owns 90% of all the vitamins sold in the world. Hoffmann-La Roche is one of the largest drug companies in the world, and they own 90% of all the vitamins. So the medical establishment now has taken over your vitamins as well. If you read the research of Royal Lee, he said, you know what? There's no such thing as an isolated vitamin in nature. In nature, there's only a vitamin complex, and every single plant or food substance contains carbohydrates, fats, proteins, enzymes, vitamins, minerals, and trace minerals, and they work in a complex, and it's so complicated that no scientist can break it apart. And those guys want to patent something so they can sell it to you, so they take the best they can. But Royal Lee says nutrition is like a watch. What part of a watch tells time? Well, the whole thing, right? So if you're chasing down isolated vitamin approaches without addressing the basics we've just discussed here, you're making big mistakes. And whenever you take isolated vitamins, your body has to scavenge all the other nutrients to put the complex back together. So what you typically see is one vitamin or nutrient works for a while, then it produces a new problem. And you think, oh, I fixed that, but now I've got this. And that keeps the whole vitamin industry running indefinitely, because one thing just leads to another. So we're getting into the conclusion now, but I would conclude that smashing the watch is not a good idea. So has the modern medical system really helped us that far? Well, there's the doctor's approach. Check that out. I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, your HMO does not pay for enemas. I'm going to have to slap the shit out of you. Okay? So the modern model is symptom-oriented, focuses on isolated organ systems, focuses on germs and genetic causes, and they treat with pharmaceuticals and surgery. By the time you get pain, by the way, pain typically shows up in the 4th of 5 phases of diseases. You will not have to look far to find somebody who went to the doctor to get a checkup. They had a pain in their chest for the first time or something, and the doctor said, you're going to die within 3 to 6 months. Okay? You don't have to go any farther than right here. My wife's mother just died of cancer, and that's exactly what happened to her. She had a little lump in her throat, went to the doctor, 6 months later she was dead. 2 years earlier, her father had the same thing happen, right? So I tell my wife, you don't have a good track record. You better be in the gym and you better eat good food, baby, or you're going to be gone. But the point being is, this is the real fact. Many people go to the doctor for a routine checkup, and within months they're dead. Why? Because symptoms are the 5th phase before you're dead. So you got inflammation, excretion, inflammation, deposition, impregnation. Symptoms show up here. The tissues degenerate. You got cancer. You're gone. Okay, so if you wait till you're in pain to do something, you made a major mistake. I borrowed this from Robert Rakowski. He makes the point better than anybody can. He said the drug companies have you hooked from cradle to grave. They've got you all scheduled out right in their business plan. They know exactly what kind of stuff you're going to have going on. They've got it all figured out beautifully, and they market to every category. What did Einstein say? Isolation equals specialization. You break the body up in pieces. That's not how it works. You can't fix it with that consciousness. So we might interest you to know what a specialist is. The definition of a specialist is someone who knows more and more about less and less until they know absolutely everything about nothing. Okay? So my concluding thoughts, thank you for sticking with me. I'm a little over time. I think the worst thing that will happen is I'll get chewed out, but I think that it's been important. So here's a typical Chek patient. And she had all these things: adrenal fatigue, hormonal imbalance, couldn't sleep well, depression, dehydration, constipation, toxicity, digestive trouble, thyroid trouble, bags of pills, tired of seeing doctors. That's what she looked like on paper. What do we have to do to get people like this healthy? Well, first thing we got to do is stop eating food from depleted soils. We got to start eating according to our racial and ethnic needs, not according to some ding-dong's diet book. We got to stop being afraid of fat, but just remember, you can't get good fat from poisoned plants and animals. So you want good fat, you got to go after good food. That means you got to support organic farming. And by the way, they're ruining the standards on organic farming too. So you better find a farmer that you can get to know and watch them carefully. You got to stop eating crap: carbohydrate, refined foods, additives, and preservatives. Crap. Okay? And we got to drink more water. Most Americans, most people in all industrialized nations are dehydrated. Robert Rakowski says it best: the best solution for pollution is dilution, right? I travel all over the world. Sometimes I can't get organic food, but I'll tell you what, I make damn sure I drink plenty of water, and I go out of my way to find good water, and that's getting to be tough too. Okay, don't skip meals. As soon as you start dieting and skipping meals, you start training your hormonal system to go into a crisis state, and that's stressful. And most people are already stressed out and wound out. So stress plus stress only equals stress. Remember, stress equals catabolic. Catabolic plus catabolic equals death. Okay? We keep looking for a magic pill. There is no magic pill. There's only taking responsibility for yourself. Okay? Drugs cover the symptoms and they don't treat the underlying cause. So you need to stay away from those unless it's just a last-ditch effort. I already told you about that. Be very careful with vitamins. Many of them are toxic to the body. I only recommend and use whole food vitamin supplementation in my practice. The only time I ever let anyone use a synthetic vitamin is if it's prescribed by someone that knows exactly what they're doing. And I have special doctors that I refer to. People like Robert Rakowski or Dan Kalish or Cliff Oliver, the doctor that runs my nutrition and lifestyle coach program. Sometimes people's metabolic systems need a kick. They need a push, but you really need to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just playing Russian roulette with people. You might as well just give them another drug and tell them to get their finances in order. Okay? Human bodies are not linear systems. They're harmonic systems. And research shows that no pool player has ever been able to do the same thing twice with the pool balls. Did you know that? Not even the best players in the world, not Minnesota Fats, no one has ever been able to, as filmed on high-speed video, make those 15 some odd balls do the same thing twice. But you have 100 trillion cells in the average human body. Each one of those is like a ball. Every one of you is radically different. You're as different on the inside as you are on the outside, but almost all drug protocols treat the human body as though it was a linear system. And it might interest you to know that all drug protocols are developed using software that approximates your physiology. Try that one on.